This chapter includes nudity and themes of orcs being raised and manipulated from birth to be cruel and violent. This chapter is not suitable for children, and some adults will find it disturbing.
Hello, this is Peter Adkison, and I'm here with Steve Conard. We co-direct the Chaldea series, and we're here to chat it up about this chapter while we play it in the background. We will be talking over the audio, so if you haven't watched Chapter 7 yet, we recommend you first watch the version without the commentary so you can enjoy it without our yammering. Hey, Chapter 7! Woo-hoo!
Here we go. The final chapter of season 1.1.
Yeah, it's very sad to say this is the last chapter in this block of chapters, season 1.1. We have the rest of season 1 will not be coming out for a while. We have to finish those chapters. And so we'll be taking a break from more of the story chapters, but we will continue to be providing content here on the site with things like deeper delves and behind the scenes, and also a new thing we have up our sleeves called Actoroki, which will involve some role-playing on Twitch, live role-playing GM'd by myself, and some other surprises, some nuances that we hope will be interesting.
Of course, it all takes place in Chaldea.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. I mean, I have GM'd other settings, but rarely, to be honest, rarely. It's almost always Chaldea.
Do what you know.
Yes, that's right. So one of the fun things in this chapter is you're going to see some things start to come together, little bits of story from different chapters. We'll start to see some of the threads weave, and so this is a chapter, even though it's in the middle of a season, it's a good place to take a pause, and you're really going to like the last half of the chapter, which is where we see the orcs.
If you like orcs, we've got lots of orcs.
We got lots of orcs. One thing we wanted to talk about is we didn't mention in the first Ricewitz chapter, here in the second Ricewitz chapter, is that Ricewitz was not a character that we originally envisioned as being one of our lead characters, or what we call POV characters, sometimes a point of view character. And for a while, his story wasn't as big, and it was part of the Yo story. Which made the O story, which is already the biggest story, even bigger. And so we decided to, at some point, disentangle the script, basically cut it in two and split it out, which was kind of a lot harder than it seems like it should be. I don't know. So Steve, maybe you want to speak to why we made that decision.
Well, one thing that we fell in love with Ricewitz, first and foremost. We love the character on so many levels. Plus, Emperor Cordova, he created these legions. We'd done huge amounts of work on legions. We had planned this huge world war that's coming up in future seasons. And then we realized that, we really don't have a window into the military. We don't have our George Patton sort of person that we follow around. A lot of our characters originally, like Yo and Zane, these were way back in the day, in the early 80s, were player characters that we loved. And so, they're basically action heroes running around, having fun. So we really needed somebody who was like, we could look at the big military engagements that would happen. And so it just sort of made sense. We loved Ricewitz. He was obviously already in the military, so as a perfect example.
Yeah. Well, and of course, Steve got no argument from me. I love the fact that we have a character that is an homage to the real world father of wargaming, who in our story is the father of advanced in Viggy miniatures rules. So it's, to me, it's just a wonderful nod back to the origins of our role playing hobby that came out of wargaming, and it just is fun to respect that.
One thing you'll notice is the name of the chapter is called War Council. The first one's called War Room. This one's called War Council. The one that comes after this will it be called War and Devour? So anytime we get a Ricewitz chapter, it's going to start with war, just because, well, that's what he does.
And you will never see one called War and Peace, right?
No, maybe the last chapter.
Maybe the last, yeah. War and Peace.
Assuming it ends with peace.
And they got our fans would be boycotting. No, War and Peace, war and carnage, war and mayhem, war and more orcs. Possible chapter titles there for you, Steve.
I'd also like to point out that the cover art, I love the cover art for both War Room and War Council, and that was produced by Chad Weatherford, and we give him a huge thanks for working with us.
Oh yeah, excellent. This is one of my favorite pieces. The cover art for this chapter is just excellent, and we've used it on our social media quite a bit, so you've probably seen it. But that's what happens. Art we really like, it gets used. All right, shall we start this up, Steve?
Go for it.
Woo-hoo.
Bring it on.
And we are back with our amazing Eric Ray Anderson as the narrator for this chapter, also Marco Hamagrar, and the musical score for this chapter, which we're really happy with, was composed by Eric Spire.
We begin this chapter right away showing you International Fair in Ogstad. International Fair was this big place that existed back in classic Chaldea. It's one of those things Peter rolled out that I just captured my imagination. It's basically an international fair that just runs 24 hours a day.
The largest temple of its kind in all of Nisha, where folks gathered to chew the fat and receive the news.
We know Ogstad is a Germanic city, so having this huge Mayotte Egyptian temple in the middle of International Fair seems a little odd. It's because it wasn't originally built here. Actually, Cordova, in his adventuring days, found this particular temple, loved it so much, and once he became emperor, he tore the whole thing apart out in the middle of the desert and drug it off here. So that's how this particular temple, or the Hutware, which is like a huge cathedral, came to be in Ogstad.
Yeah, and the term Hutware, is our term for cathedral. I remember having this discussion with Mia Mary, our Chaldea's resident Egyptologist, about, we need an Egyptian term that kind of means cathedral, like super, super big church. And I think she had to, I think Weret is a actual Egyptian term for a temple, but she had to add, I think Hut just means big.
Soldiers of the 10th Legion as they went about their daily regimented training. Sadly, regicide had become all too common of late. First the Emperor, now König Rusdorf. The death of the Hessen royal family, while sad and tragic, was just another violent event in the world of mortals. With the Emperor no longer able to maintain the peace, other calamities and tribulations would quickly follow. Politics was an international game of mystery and subterfuge, as ruthless and bloody as any battlefield skirmish. War was coming, faster than anyone realized. 40 years of peace under Cordova's rule had given rise to a Potemkin village of sorts. That violence, war, the dark times were forever a hallmark of the past. Were these dedicated legionnaires who trained non-stop truly prepared for whatever foe raised a sword against the Empire? Hessen Fräulein gathered strategically along the Garnon River, more interested in the handsome soldiers swimming than doing laundry. Garments that would soon be soiled with blood and tears. The woodland stranger entered the Garnon, searching. Finally, she climbed to the highest branches of the tallest oak, her eyes and intention on something.
The likeness rights for the mysterious woodland stranger are Trin Miller.
And Trin Miller's amazing. and we didn't just grab her by accident. So chances are you'll see this character again. A
Yeah.
lot. If you recall, you used to make up these really very interesting arrows. Do you remember the teleport arrow?
Oh yeah, I love. I think I mentioned in a previous chapter that I love magical books. I like magical arrows too, and so the idea of having a magical arrow that you can fire and then just dimension door right to where the arrow landed. That seems kind of fun, useful.
Here we're looking at the campus of Set, which is the 10th Legion's Castrum training grounds. And so now you get to see a wide-angle shot of what an Imperial Castrum would look like with all the support structures. The center field large enough for them to practice full-scale skirmishes with siege weapons. And as you can see, Enchantment's Guard is quite the fortress.
This is the 10th Legion, the Warhawks. Mean anything to you?
I'm a big fan of the film Full Metal Jacket. Recall the sergeant, gunnery sergeant, just going off on all the recruits, just chewing their ass. Yeah, this is essentially the Imperial Legion scene of that. So every Legion has their own little things that they like to do, the holidays or what sort of special little things that grow up naturally in a Legion. Here, the 10th Legion likes to collect shields from famous battles. And they're displayed on, inside the Colosseum there for every new soldier to look back at the old, to be able to see, this is the history of what the Warhawks means. And, one of the things you have to do is when you're into the Warhawks, you have to memorize all the shields and who carried them and when and what happened in that particular battle.
And the roles of Bongani and Gromov are played by Michael Montgomery and Andrew Stanton.
On the edge of the Cloud Forger, stood against the beast of Tavjan.
And the goddamn son bitch survived.
The 10th Legion helped tame Chaldea, forging Cordava's mighty empire.
Battle of Acadia.
In War Room, there was a mural on the wall showing Helvig getting his field promotion after the Battle of Acadia. And so this here, it happens to be the shield that he was carrying that day.
When we decided that we need to censor some of our content to comply with YouTube's content guidelines, we realized that we needed to, change some of the text. What do you call those special characters when you're using
comic swear words? I don't know.
Comic words, and to bleep it out. And for the first reaction, it's kind of this is kind of disappointing. Then we realized, I think we both came to the same conclusion that this particular scene would actually be really funny with a lot of.
Gromov has a foul mouth. He's a sailor at heart.
Yeah.
Bongani's from Targonia. He's a large man. There's a little hint here that he might be actually a little stronger than the average person, being able to stiff arm that shield. Just pointing that out.
Brilliant idea. You think that's funny, nuts? Okay. Whoever goes for this pathetic sack of discharge goes for every one of you faced vod heads. Now you get me? That's it! 10 laps around the campus. All of yous, now! Go!
Yes, Centurion!
Bongani grinned, amused as he watched Gromov's colorful prose inspire the recruits more effectively than any barbed whip. The Roosh Centurion would have the soldiers running scared for the next few hours. Bongani loved the 10th Legion and its mishmash of diverse and unique personalities.
So I think this is the first time that we're showing a giant in Chaldea.
And probably the
actually,
first dinosaur too.
Although he's a half giant.
Yeah.
He's half.
He's a runt
Yes.
litter, right?
His mother was an ogre. It wasn't exactly so. You're seeing half of a giant. So anyway, yeah, I love the fact that he rides He rides a dinosaur. So in War Room, when the Drazeldar freaked out and went running to who knows where, Rokotansky and Woodmall were sent to follow him at a distance, see where he goes. So this is his report back.
Tribunus Rokotansky is performed by Jordan Mitchell, who is very noteworthy and with a lot of affection for us. Jordan is our art director for, our production designer for our live action film. So most of the sets that we have built are sets that he designed.
And furthermore, he's so far up to this point has done all the concept art for everything.
Yeah.
Environments, characters, costumes, weapons. He loves weapons. Just convince him to draw a weapon. Monsters, demons. Yeah.
Gods be damned.
Oh, yeah. Oh, but wait. This tale gets much better. Yeah, on the return trip, we stopped in Andalus to speak with Legatus Trenton. Rumors sweeping the Empire. They say the Drazeldar are abandoning their posts in droves.
Meanwhile, on the other side of the castrum, inquisitive Akkadians explored the grounds.
Yeah, you might remember from the Sarva 1 chapter, chapter 2, that Sarva took refuge, house arrest by Gustavus after attempting to assassinate the Patesi of Cadia. Well, now that Kradava, the emperor, is dead, Sarva has more options. Helvig doesn't have to return to Akkadia. So Sarva is here along with Balatu and Rubati. These three characters performed by Yasmin Aker and Jagan Zunza and Megan Karemi Nasser.
An impressive display, albeit loud.
Would you prefer to serve in the Legion, Nubanda?
My place is by your side, Papa, as always.
I, for one, would relish a shot at these Legionnaires. Are we still talking about the sword? Bed, field, both? I would dominate their asses while proudly achieving and sustaining simultaneous multiple very ambitious and aspirational, Rubati. Are you speaking from experience? Papa Sarva, not in front of the males. Mother can dream, can't she? Yes, she can dream. Some more so than others, apparently.
Sarva and Rubati's playful banter mixed with the cacophony of the 10th Legion training grounds. Slowly, the discordant mix carried skyward to inquisitive ears atop Enchantment's guard. The infiltrator slung her hood over her head and settled back for a long wait. Her attention was soon drawn to a window and an individual within. On the other side of that very same window is the governor's office. Helvig brooded over his command. The uneasy tangle of knots in his abdomen were manifestations of a dreaded fear that the Emperor's and the Konig's deaths were somehow linked. And then there's the Drazeldar that mysteriously abandoned its post, disappearing into the Garnon forest to who knows where. All of this. Mere coincidence?
The entire family is dead. Koenig, Konigan, Kurfürst Arwolf, all of them. Even the little ones.
Any news on the perpetrator?
Those who survived didn't witness anything.
Yeah, Lotari. He's the one. I want bounties on him and all the members of the Black Daggers.
So in the last chapter, we had our Black Dagger heroes going into the Konig's coronation ball. Things didn't go well. Well, at least for the Konig, it didn't go well. So now we have the Legion after him. That's pretty big.
Here we see Reiswitz. This is a Reiswitz chapter, so that's a good thing. Reiswitz is performed, of course, by Stefan Hayek.
Word spread like wildfire. The second cohort would march into Tavia beneath the shadow of the Cloudforger Mountains in search of Pfalzgraf Lothari von Cronenberg and his Black Dagger accomplices. Soon, 500 legionnaires were assembled, rank and file with accompanying auxilia and support personnel. It didn't take much arm twisting to energize a legion. Tribunus Tepek Hasdani was as eager as his staff officers to seek action in the field, even if that action were against a minor guild of assassins. The Tribunus quickly mounted his steed. He cared little for flowery speeches and even less...
Unless he's given this speech to a bunch of miniatures.
Tepek Hasdani, of course, is performed by Dylan Smith.
He led the second cohort to the exits. The Pfalzgraf in question was hiding somewhere. If he were at Braunschweig Schloss, they would find him and bring him to justice. As dead meat or otherwise.
Oh, this seems like a different part of the world, Steve. Where are we at now?
Mycenae. So we have a lot of different kingdoms, and we slowly start introducing them. And this is the Chaldea version of Greece.
That's right. Yeah, and so very, very excited to finally be showing off a new cultural landscape for you. You know, we've had scenes set in Acadia, and now we've had scenes set, a lot of scenes set in Hesse. And now we will see a scene set in Mycenae, or on the road from through Mycenaean countryside here.
And we're introducing here the Greek hoplite soldiers. And if you look close, you'll notice that they've got symbols of an owl on their shield, which is a symbol of Athena. And that's very bold considering real recently, or even still, you know, religions are outlawed other than the Church of Set.
Yeah, and so, you know, in the wake of Credava's death, as we saw also in Zane 1, there is certainly going to a religious warfare element to our story. With Credava dead, other religions are going to start flexing their muscles, and like we've been suppressed too long. And this band of merry Greeks is led by a new character named Sophronia, performed by Mariana de Fazio. And Sophronia is quite happy to let loose and show the world her devotion to Athena.
Do you remember a long time ago in the 80s when you had the radiation zone?
Yes. There's a kingdom in Chaldea called the Greymory Waste. A kingdom really stretching the definition. It's a section of wilderness that pretty much nobody wants to have anything to do with. And this was in classic Chaldea role-playing, something of a nod to Gamma World, where this area of radioactive wasteland with mutants. I mean, because the random mutation table was the best part of Gamma World. And so, yeah, why not have a place where you can go take a dip in a lake and come out with a mutation if you survive.
Horrific deaths on both sides. But the result was never in question. The Hoplites proved too much for even the Greymori-enhanced mutants.
Surinel moves quicker than I would have imagined.
I think he'd prefer the new Königin of Hesse not reach her palace.
Well,
I am not
seems like maybe with the Koenig dead,
not yet.
is this person next in line?
She seems to think so.
Evening, a few days later,
Doesn't seem.
the 10th Legion gathered for a walk.
Doesn't seem Germanic though. That's going to be interesting.
So here we are back in the war room, which we introduced in chapter 3. And back to the table. And Reiswitz with his miniatures and a strategic map of the continent of Nisha, planning out his defense of the continent from the orc threat.
Yeah, we've got Helvig in there, and Rakitansky's in there, and Bongani, and some other senior soldiers. Slowly we're getting introduced to more and more of the 10th Legion.
That's right. And some of the other soldiers not dressed in Imperial uniforms represent the commanders of auxilia units attached
We run
to them.
scenarios using all possible strategies. Conclusion? Stolhofen provides the best defensive position for opposing Cernum. The Divinity Mountains will provide an easily fortifiable line. And should Stolhofen fall, we can fall back to the Moldau River. If the orcs cross the Moldau, then we can fall back to Ogstad.
There will be no falling back. We must stop them at Stolhofen.
The unconventional nature of the orc army is another challenge. We can't attack the supply lines because they are non-existent. They loot and pillage as they go.
How many troops are we sending to Tetonik?
None. If we are going to hold the orcs at Stolhofen, we can't risk sending anyone to Tetanik.
I'm going to show you a map here of Nisha and maybe add a little explanation for why they can't send soldiers to Tetanik, at least according to Reiswitz. If you see Hesse, where they're at right now, an enchantment's guard is way in the upper left-hand northwest corner of the continent. And you can see that Nisha dominates the southern part of the continent. And you can see how Stolhofen is a nice barrier, a good place to defend against what they assume would be an orc attack primarily towards the capital. And then you look at Tetanik way down here. First of
Dinosaur
all,
country.
Dinosaur country. Yeah. Steve's right. This is this little place here is where where the dinosaurs are from in Chaldea. And it's not really that important of an area. It's actually a colony of Hesse, a colony that the Hessens purchased from the Perts. And it's really not considered that important. And Reiswitz is saying, hey, there's no way. We send troops down there, and then the war breaks out. Those troops are trapped down there and not available for defense. And so sound, logical military planning. And Helvig isn't too happy about that. And Sarva sees this as her opportunity to perhaps work toward a command of her own.
I love this part about Sarva, that she's in this room of Imperial soldiers. She's the only woman commander, and she's not afraid. Just steps right in there.
Yeah.
I mean, again, she strategically, she's smart and she's swift. I mean, she immediately grasps what's going on here and how she can make it work.
That's right. Sarva and Reiswitz are a good team in a lot of ways. They're two of the brightest military minds of Chaldea. And Sarvis has an interesting philosophy here of how she might be able to make a difference in this war. Yeah, I really have a lot of affection for this scene. We have Sarva is a great character, one of my favorites, having to deal with sexism and racism here all at once. And from Helvig and Reiswitz's commanders, but Helvig sees the logic in what she's saying, and Helvig also has a lot of respect for Akkadians and sends her on a mission. Can't give her command of Tetanik, but she does have some of her own troops. So she goes there with her own command. So she has to be treated like an officer of sorts. And in future block of episodes, we'll see how she does. Looking at the map again, Tetanik, yeah, it's off the beaten path and the path from going to the Orc Empire to Hesse, but it's also really close to the Orc Empire. So be careful what you wish for. Sarva is going to be sent really close to the borderland. In fact, she's going to be sent to Montfort, which is right across the border from Niche.
I still have
Technique is sort of like Poland in 1941, 39, whatever. Not a good place to be.
A little hard to protect, right next to Germany and a long way from the French and the British, close to Russia, but Russia ends up getting in on the action and taking part of Poland for itself. So yeah, a good analogy. Technique is not, but some officers would not consider that to be an opportunity to be sent to the Technique. But Sarva's going to grab this opportunity by the nuts and go for it.
Speaking of hostile neighbors,
yeah,
how about we introduce Nisha?
Yeah, let's see what Sarva on a tactical level and Reiswitz on a strategic level are up against, shall we? We mentioned earlier how much we love the score by Eric Spire for this chapter. It's probably our favorite. Also, I think the sound effects in this chapter are among our favorites. And Steve, you worked a lot on this horn here.
I love bad guys. I keep saying that all the time. I'm a broken record. Love bad guys. Orcs are great. The horn is, we've introduced before that we have Cthulhian creatures in the universe. And so the orcs have captured a Cthulhian creature that they use as a horn. So this is sort of a living horn. The orcs are blowing in one end of a tentacle and sounds coming out the other end of another tentacle. It's just, I don't want to know what the smell's like. I didn't have to actually create the smell, just the sound effect.
And of course, when Steve says create the sound effects, we did this with the wonderful, talented sound engineers at Bad Animals, Mike McAuliffe and David Gallagher.
Gorg Boss. We got to talk about Gorg Boss. I mean, this is probably the most famous dungeon in Chaldea for at least a decade. I don't know. I mean, maybe it was only 5 years, but it seems like a decade. But we used to go into Gorg Boss so much. It was like this underground orc-infested place. Oh man, we used to go down there, and I remember seeing maps. It was just epic. It was just went. You had so many maps. We'd go down there and we'd fight orcs for days and days. So Gorg Boss, we had to bring Gorg Boss into modern day Chaldea and show you what it's like.
Yes, that's right. Yeah. Gorg Boss was my first dungeon. When I started DMing Chaldea back in 1980. Gorg Boss was okay. Time to do a dungeon. We're playing AD&D back in those days, and Gorg Boss was it. Eventually, we moved on to other things, but it was always there.
So this is our first introduction to Gank and Nashmag. They're two senior lieutenants in Marzon's elite strike team called the Rough Guts, who play a large role in the ongoing Chaldea saga. These two guys are a lot of fun.
Yeah. And the role of Gank is performed by Jake Nzinza, and the role of Nashmag by Nick Donner. Jake is also the same performer for Balatu.
Yeah, I'm not sure which character he likes more. I think he actually probably deep down likes playing Gank.
Yeah, probably so.
We talked about in their Deeper Delve into Orcs, who Brood is, the entity of Dasha. So this is what the blood subchamber looks like, and the blood there is connected to the Orc underworld, and so this is where the spell power for Niche is located. This is ground zero. You want to nuke this place if you can, if you're human.
Right. So fair to say that you did not design the Orcs of Chaldea as bowling pins to just be easily knocked over by gravers wandering through?
Are they gathered? Yes.
Hopefully they're not stormtroopers. Maybe season down the line, maybe 2 seasons down the line, and players were like, I really just want to play the Orcs. They're just cooler. I do believe this is the first time we've seen a Taxian. Is that right?
You would know.
I think so. So Ataxians are not indigenous to Chaldea. Well, almost nothing's indigenous to Chaldea. They're a psionic race from the Celestial Age. They're hugely old, and so most of the psionic people who use psionics in Chaldea tend to be Taxian. That's not the rule, but so this is a Taxian that works for Cyrano.
Yeah, well, Chaldea grew out of old school AD&D, and psionics was a big part of that for me. I always liked the psionics, and so I was eager to have some cool psionic creatures and races in our story.
So these guys tend to be, they're mentally strong, but they're like physically sort of weak. This particular person uses telekinesis sort of and uses like guy wires to make him move around. He doesn't really walk. He just uses telekinesis to do his moving. In this description here, they calls it a demon-possessed lance, and then said it used its primal influence. So it's directly telling you that there's a primal-based demon in that lance.
Brood found his hate sufficient, she would grant him what he most desired. Up here.
Here we meet Gazette. Gazette is going to be a major character in our story. She is performed by Kristen Hubbard, and Marzon is performed by David Drummond.
Yeah, she's one of the Blood Sisters, which is one of 4 who is sort of a counterweight to the Rough Guts.
Yeah, I think our we really wanted to do with the orcs was to have a kingdom of creatures that were just really, really vicious, like orcs traditionally have been throughout mythology and medieval times all the way up to current times. But to make them pretty smart and pretty tough, not just like craven, sort of misshapen horrors, but with command of magic and architecture and weapons and strategy and so on. To I think closer to like say the Klingons and Star Trek franchise in that respect.
Yeah, we wanted them to be formidable, to have a villain to go against the heroes, the military, Reiswitz, that seemed like, oh my goodness, like they might lose this. Maybe they do. We'll see what happens. I mean, they're definitely, they're not a pushover. They're not just supposed to, they seem badass. A lot of times, they seem badass in introduction, and then later on you fight them and they're just like, they can't hit anything, they can't do anything. We just desperately didn't want it. We wanted to avoid that completely. We wanted people like, whoa, watch out.
Yeah, the orcs are a credible threat here.
Audience chamber, where a grand host of 50,000 orcs waited crammed inside. The energy, palpable. Heavy percussion beat rhythmically in time with the din of a nearby armory. The sea of expectant orcs stared, hovering. A Cthulian horn roused the crowd. Marzon took the stage. His voice carried, augmented by shaman theatrics, fueled by blood magic. At that exact same moment, another orc army gathered en masse at the fortress citadel of Brood. From the dark recesses of muddy cracks and stone hovels, orcs scurried forth to bear witness to history. Shaman magic channeled Marzon's fury, delivering his message, his hate.
1,000 years ago, Orc was brought to Chaldea to fight in the Clawhammer War.
Marzon, the hate-monger of the Clawhammer War, had returned. When his booming voice broke over the assembled army, the world reverberated in animus-filled ecstasy. The same scene was playing out all over Niche, now in Lagoon.
I was that orc. Me. Each and every one of you is me, my blood. I fucked your mothers, your grandmothers, and your great-grandmothers before them.
It's one thing to blow your own horn. It's another thing to actually go into combat.
I don't think the orcs are going to be shy about going into combat.
This we talked about before. Gorg Boss was originally a dwarven fortress. So the smithy you see in the background there is actually originally a dwarven smithy. Orcs don't normally build things that grand. Well, of course they don't, because the dwarves did. They took over this. So this big audience chamber used to be a dwarven.
Yeah, all of the fortresses that are that we feature here in this upcoming sequence are dwarven fortresses originally that the orcs enjoy ownership of now.
For many generations, Orc ruled. Kings of this planet, were we not? No one controlled Orc. No one until Cordava dared imprison our magnificent race here in this very mountain. An Orc paradise turned into a tomb. Why did Cordava treat us worse than dwarven shit and silence us? Because he feared us. Oh, glorious and hateful Orc, the time has come to undo this crime. Because now, Cordava is dead. Your ears do not deceive you. Cordava is dead! May he rot in Hellas frozen!
The crowd stood silent, shocked. Was the Emperor who oppressed them for the last 40 years finally dead? They just could not believe their orc ears.
Hate is good. Hate is who we are. It's time for us to take back this world and fill it with hate. I call you all to war! And Marzon hates you, and you, and you! Hate, 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 hate. Archeron!
An astral plane portal cracked wide, and from it came Archeron.
And of course, he's got to write something decent, right? He can't write an average horse.
No, of course not.
How about a nightmare? Hell, Steve.
That's right. And when I have it come right out of the astral plane and just jump on it as it goes by.
Was that too subtle? What do you think happens in the next set of chapters?
Yeah, hard to say. Hard to know where this is going from here. And hopefully we've painted a picture of orcs as a formidable opponent. Yeah, what a great way to end the middle of season 1. I hope you enjoyed our video. We sure as hell enjoyed making it.
There are 8 more chapters in the next block.
Yes.
What we call season 1.2. So there's more to come. I hope you enjoy it.
Yep, and we're already working on those chapters, and we're working on seasons 2 and 3, and yeah, we will be doing this for a long time. I hope you settle in and enjoy the ride with us. We'll be friends.
I'm going to do that until the day I lose my hair. Or wait.
We like to say we hope we finish the story before we die. Yep, that's our goal.